Hello, gentlemen. Welcome back. What show are we on again, gentlemen?
1,625.
My memory is the source of constant entertainment for the two gentlemen here. We got Brian, we got Savan.
Hello.
Welcome. I'm Wesley. Duh. Here we go. So I'm excited for this one. Actually, it's probably.
Why are you excited, Wes? Tell
I
us.
don't know. I'm not even the biggest. We're gonna talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm not even the biggest Avatar fan, but I think what I'm excited about is that this show might have a chance to right the wrongs of the M. Night Shyamalan live action Last Airbender from
the original sin.
It was like 10 years ago, right? And this one just feels so much more like fun and it's inspired by the show clearly, and like kind of it's a clear fan of the show, and you get to see Appa right away, and it's very like on brand, and everything looks kind of like it did in the cartoon. It's just a bunch of fun.
For those who haven't gone back deep into the Confidently Wrong catalog, I think maybe our second or third episode of this podcast was actually about the original animated series. And in that, correct me if I'm wrong, Wes, you said you hated Aang.
Did I say I hated Aang?
I don't know if I'm like putting words into your mouth, but you did not like Aang.
He's
and
not.
We were aghast.
Well, remember I didn't like Sokka. I thought Sokka was kind of not useless, but he just like didn't have the same like role and importance that everybody else did, because and partly like as a limitation of him not being able to bend. And people made a big deal, or Mike made a big deal about like, no, he's like the thinker and the planner, and like that's his role, and he's like the leader. And I was like, that's fine, but he's also kind of a goofball, so like I don't know, whatever. It's actually
why can't he be both?
It's
or
actually
either?
show number 1. I went back into our.
Oh, it's show number 1.
Show number 1. It's what me and. So this is the show that me and Mike started with, I guess.
Wes, what do you bring to this show?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Should I just leave now? You guys can handle it.
No, you're our Sokka. And I think Sokka's the
that
GOAT
feels like an insult now that I've been like, I didn't like Sokka.
Yeah, that's you insulting yourself. I've been a Sokka truther from the beginning. I've always been a Sokka fan.
Wes is tear bending right now.
Tear bending. All right, well, at least that's not illegal. So here we go. We are one of the most Savan called it a critically acclaimed series. I would just say it's well loved. I don't know if it's critically acclaimed, but it's got a huge following. Yeah, it's got a huge following. Both adults and kids love the show. I think especially folks Sav's age who kind of grew up with it in their probably like your teens, early teens.
Yeah, I mean, it came out in not even teens, before then, because Avatar came out in 2005. That was like 20 years ago. I would have been like 10, 11.
Okay. Yeah, and so for me, who didn't have cable, but also was at that point 21 or something like that, not necessarily going to be right on the Avatar train. We were more on Homestar Runner at that point, and and I was probably deep in my West Wing phase.
Email.
Yeah.
I definitely watched Avatar in my 30s.
Yeah.
And loved it.
Yeah.
If that says anything about me.
See, I wasn't watching that right when it came out, when it was hot in the streets.
No, sir.
I was too busy going out. Shoot. That was when I was in my prime. I'm going to waste my time on some children's cartoons.
Back in 2005, that was your prime. Yeah, I guess you would have been like 21,
Brian
22.
was planning an entire 2,000-person conference, or however many people showed up. I don't know. Brian, how many
So were
people?
you, Wesley. So were you.
I was only doing a minuscule part of that and doing it kind of badly. I'm not going to lie. Brian was kind of mad at us for not doing it very well. Me and a partner were working on it.
It's okay. People were mad at me for not doing it well either.
He was like, what are you doing? We have 3 people? Like, come on. You got to get more. I was like, okay. I don't know where to find these people.
Yeah, put the pressure on.
Anyway, we did it, though. We did it.
It
came out better. And then
successful.
after that, I spent 5 years of my life partying and being a cool guy.
Never doing things responsibly ever again.
Correct.
All right. And you went to Europe for that. But that's okay. It's another story. All right. So we're here. we're trying another live action, which on its face value seems like a bad idea. I mean, it's a cartoon, it involves fantasy elements, there's all this stuff, and we'll talk about like what works and what doesn't in terms of like that translation, but just like the overall idea of it seems like it just might be a little bit of a stretch. Like we're skeptical. Savant even kind of expressed some skepticism on last show that like how do you take something that's a cartoon and clearly relies on the animation medium and then try and translate that to a live action where things just have to be more grounded because our brains will only accept so much of the disreality. So we'll see. I don't know. What were your expectations coming in? Sav, I know you were a little skeptical. We'll come to you in a second. Brian, what were you thinking?
Well, I love the series, right? I
animated
never
series.
watched the M. Night Shyamalan version, which I think even just seeing a clip, is obviously utter garbage.
Who's the guy that plays the bad guy? He's like a comedic actor.
Everybody's the bad guy.
Does it matter? May they burn in hell
No, he's a
for the rest
great
of
actor.
eternity.
Just
Who
not in
was
that
it?
role.
Whatever.
I'm
Does it
gonna look it up.
matter? It was terrible. Like that was truly critically panned. Right? Like,
It really was.
Like, it hit the 0 mark on Rotten Tomatoes. Probably it shot the moon. So when they announced that Netflix was doing this live action series with the original creators of the animated series, Brian Konietzko or whatever his name is, and the other guy, I don't know their names. Whatever.
And the other guy.
Yeah, and the other guy.
Asif Manvi. Asif Manvi was one of the
Asif
bad guys.
Manvi was in it. From the Daily Show?
Yeah, and he was trying to do this very serious, over-the-top bad guy, and it just came off it was too much.
Poor guy.
Too
Haven't
much.
heard from him since.
Miscast by far.
So when they announced that the original creators were going to be involved in the live-action reimagining of this series, I was actually very enthusiastic about it. However, from that high point, as we've gotten closer and closer to its release, there have been a number of events that have caused that excitement to wane.
Good word.
At
wane.
each step. So basically, a few years ago, the creators bounced. They're like
deuces.
We have creative differences with Netflix, and now we're just going to go start our own studio with Nickelodeon and do more animated stuff. Right? So they're out. And then, okay, that's huge red flag number one.
Agreed.
Then, then they started releasing photos of the cast. The casting actually was another draw for me, right? Like one of the big criticisms of the M. Night Shyamalan version, like very, very whitewashed version of Avatar: The Last Airbender. In this live action series, they're casting a lot of, people, Asian American actors that are notable. In particular, Daniel Day Kim as Lord Ozai. And so they released a picture of him in costume, and it was kind of like, I don't know, felt out of place a little bit. So excitement notching down just a little bit. And then when the trailer was released more recently, I couldn't really distinguish it from the M. Night Shyamalan version in a way. Just an appearance, right? Not content storytelling wise, but just an appearance. It's like, does this look kind of funny? I think maybe it looks kind of funny. So I wasn't as really that high into it. And then there's this track record of
just high, not high.
Yeah, it was just high.
Just high.
On a high horse. That's what I was. And then, Netflix sort of has this track record now of trying to adapt very beloved anime, Cowboy Bebop, One Piece, into live action series.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried watching both of those, and they're really hard. They're really hard to watch. So all of that combined left me feeling like, well, I don't really know if this live action series is going to cut it. So that's where it left me on the doorstep. But I'll have more thoughts after now having watched the first 4 episodes.
Sav, was your skepticism just about the translation between animation and live action, or were you worried about other things as well?
Nah, the main one is that, I mean, I've said this for years, right? Like, some of the stuff that makes Avatar look dope works because it's an animated series. How's that going to translate? Do the costumes look goofy if you translate it from animation to this? You know, like, even things like textures, you know, when you're animated, you don't have to worry about the texture of the cloth that's this bright, vibrant orange color, or really think, oh, we have furs on their outfits. How do we make these furs look? What animal do we want to base it on? Like, those little things go a long way in a costume looking like something well crafted that could exist in a world, and what looks like a really colorful Party City cosplay outfit, right? So, like, that was part of the concern, but another big area of concern definitely was the
And to kind of
showrunners
spoil it, I think
stepping
they
away.
nailed that aspect of it in this show.
It was a
Did
little.
they?
I think so.
I think it can feel a little hit or miss. Like, sometimes the way I feel is that the outfits are so vibrant and colorful that they don't feel lived in, or have like a worn, you know, like when I see the air nomads, you know, their outfits are beautifully designed and crafted, but sometimes it looks too colorful, right? Like, you have a whole village and everyone has clothes that look like they got it fresh out the pack. Like, those are little things that it's not a deal breaker, but there's so much that goes into how little things in these mediums translate from one to another. Even them having more faded, worn, torn, tattered, just not fresh new outfit looks goes a long way. So that's always going to be a concern, and it'll be a concern as I watch through the series. I'm only 2.5 in. But I think the other two concerns I had were casting, in that, similar, the characters' ages you can get away with a little better when they're animated, but when you see the real life actors and they didn't age up the cast, which I kind of would have liked them to age them up a little bit, that also maybe hurts the suspension of disbelief, because an animated 12-year-old, 13-year-old, because they're cartoonish and you can again have that design liberty, that maybe isn't as off-putting as like when I saw Azula, who, nothing wrong with the actual actor themselves, but this clearly is a 12-year-old, and I'm just like not threatened, compared to animated Azula that they just can make look more badass because it's not an actual real life kid.
So, fun
But
fact: the Azula actor is like 22 in real life.
bull dinky.
Oh, put that word on a T-shirt.
Well, what I'll say is they
I
still
looked
make
her
them.
up. I was like, "What?"
Well, they
Who is
still
this
make
person?
them. They still make them
But she
look
feels
really
young.
They
Yeah.
make them
Yeah.
look young, and even with because even Sokka's actor, look at the Sokka actor, he's like 2021. I actually would be okay with them doing like what they did with Game of Thrones, where they said, actually, we're going to age up our cast by like 4 years, just because that makes things work a little better. Because in Thrones, most of the characters, the main Stark kids, for example, are like closer to Avatar character ages than teenage age.
Really?
Anyways, that was a whole side, and that was a good decision, right? Like, Daenerys in the books is like 13. They made her a young adult, but you know that recontextualizes a lot of her early scenes, especially the Drogo stuff, right? Anyways, that's a sidebar. My biggest concern was when the showrunner stepped away, like Brian said. To me, that was a massive red flag. I respect their vision for the show and what they would want to do. So if they felt like, hey man, I'm not rocking with this, I'm genuinely curious as to what that was. And obviously they're respectful enough to, we're not going to air out the dirty laundry of, oh, Netflix and us were beefing behind the scenes. But if it was to the point where they said, we're going to do our own animated thing back at the OGs with Nick, to me, that is very concerning. And I don't know if we'll ever know what specific things made them want to leave, but that's a red flag.
Yeah, I agree. That gave me pause after having seen some of the episodes. I'm about 3.5 episodes in at this point, and I'm actually kind of curious about like what things they felt weren't working, and maybe it was just personal relationships. Maybe that part of it wasn't working, but it sounded like they were not excited about like the creative directions and the storytelling directions. But and who knows, maybe they would have done it a totally different way. But so far, the show has felt very much like it's lifted straight from the show. The feelings, the characters, the tone, the moments, like the way that things are framed is very. It feels very like the animated series from back in the day. So
which
I'm
begs
wondering
the question,
if
though.
like what exactly were they hoping for that was different?
Yeah,
like
maybe that wasn't their intention with the live action, because they
yeah,
knew that the animation was such a good and complete series that it didn't need to be rehashed in this way.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Maybe.
right? And
Yeah.
they wanted to do something different, live action,
Yeah.
which, in my opinion, probably would have been better,
Yeah, because you have
rather
less
than
to,
just
you have
trying
less
to
to
straight
compare
up
it to.
carbon copy the animated series.
Yeah, because there's definitely some very intentional, almost like ham-fisted one-for-one line dialogue shot moments. That's like, oh yeah, the director was like, all right, say the thing, say the thing, say the
Yeah.
thing. It's like, cool, this isn't bad, but I do have the question. I have to finish the series of what is this adding to what we already have enjoyed about the Avatar series over the years? We've gotten video games, comics, and the comics are actually really good, right?
Oh
We've
yeah,
gotten
highly
novels, like
recommend.
we've gotten novels like the actual Avatar Kyoshi novel. There's a world, we've gotten Korra. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that we have gotten from the series that has explored this big universe. So why are we getting a live action series that doesn't actually give us anything new? It's not like me hating on the show, but it's a legitimate question of, did they just think, hey, this is a means for us to make some bread? Or were they trying to do something different? So far, it doesn't feel like they're trying to do anything different, but I'm not going to hold it against the show until I see more. But it's a question that's going to float over my head the whole time of, who asked for this? I'm not
Yeah.
ungrateful for it, but it's like, who is this being made for? Why should I watch this instead of rewatching Avatar, the animated series? Like,
Exactly.
if I had a friend who's never watched Avatar, why would I get them to watch this over the animated series? Like, it's a rhetorical question, but it's a legit one of why? If
Yeah.
Wes had never seen it and me and Brian are hyping up the series, why should Wes watch this instead of watching the animated series? Should he watch both? Should he watch all the other stuff then this? Like, these are questions I have that I don't know if I'll ever get an answer. We'll probably get an answer once the new animated series for the original showrunners do. But I think even that one is a continuation of Aang and them when they're young
As
adults.
adults.
Like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think they might have just wanted to tell a different story. And I think maybe Netflix figured the safer option is, this is all speculation, but it feels like the safer option is maybe a story that we already know what happens because that's safer for audiences rather than something totally new that might just fall face first. I don't know.
I would say devil's advocate that, like, I think it's just about intention, and you're wondering, like, is this a cash grab, or is this like it was just time to revisit the story, you know? And we've and many people have enjoyed like the Harry Potter, and movies over the years, and that's pretty much a fairly straight adaptation from the books. I mean, they did stuff to make it fit into movie form and movie length, but most of the beats are the same, most of the plot is the same, most of the characters are the same, and there wasn't anything like quote unquote new for people. But because you got to see it come to life, that part is fun, from a book to a live action. The
I
Last
think
of
that's
Us,
the
right?
key. I think that's the key difference, though. Like, the going from a non-visual medium like a novel to a visual medium is such a big shift that
Yeah,
I
huge
completely
jump.
understand why, like, books to movies and movies to books make sense because the mediums are so different that you're actually getting to do something unique that you couldn't have done before. I think there's a much smaller leap between TV and film because the mediums are frankly the same minus just like the how you chop it up. But I agree with you, Wes. Like, I guess I agree with you in that I get why you adapt these series. Like, we just
Yeah.
did Mr. and Mrs. Smith last episode, right? And the whole point
Yeah.
was that the same idea, right? They do a TV show based on this thing that was 20 years ago, like Avatar, Mr. Smith, both like basically 20 years ago. And one is a one-to-one adaptation. The other is, let's just take the premise and do something new with it. So I get that part, but even, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm
Yeah.
just looking at other shows that have also been like 20 years later, let's do a retelling of this. And it feels like this is one of the few that's a one-to-one off the top of my head. Even Last of Us drastically changed how a lot of stuff worked, and it was for formatting and pacing purposes. So,
Well, I don't know if you'd say it's drastically changed, right? They talked about it like, hey, if we're gonna change something, we're gonna change it because it makes the story better, but we're not gonna. I mean, a lot of that stuff did come exactly from the games, right? And so, and I don't know, this is sort of, it feels a little bit like it maybe just depends on your cup of tea. Like, are you looking for creators and storytellers to push themselves and try and find different ways of looking at things? Or are you looking for something you know and you're comfortable with, and you want it to carry on that same thing, right? People often say like, oh, this villain would never do that, or like this, like if you read the comics, you would know that this is a totally like, bad take on this character. And they love the way that the character was before. They love the way that like that story was told before, and they want to see it in now in the movie form or a TV form or whatever, and they want it to be almost exactly what it was before. And so I think that maybe this is a show that's more built for that sort of viewing lens of like, I just want to see my favorite characters now in live action and have them tell these fun stories in a way that like, what would it look like if it was in real life, right? Like what would a water bison look like, or an air bison look like in real life? And it's like, oh damn, that thing looks kind of awesome, and so maybe that's where their heads are at. And I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they aren't just producing this as like we're just going to tap into people's nostalgia and make all this money from them,
That's exactly what that sounds like, what you're describing.
Yeah, but like they're still trying to be true to the material, right? I feel like you can tell from the way the story is going that they are fans of the original story. They understand who these characters are. They understand what made them like interesting and like how they were. You don't think so?
Skepticism from the peanut gallery over here.
I think they've shown a lot of that, and we're gonna make it work, in a way that very much feels like it's related to the show, the animated show. Let's keep going. Sav is making stank faces out here, but he'll get to talk about it as we continue. So I think let's talk about the visuals next. I'm gonna skip that next question. So a lot of times movies like this, and I think even the second Avatar fell apart on this, or not the second Avatar, but the M. Night Shyamalan Avatar fell apart on this a little bit. It's just like fantasy, and especially coming from animation, fantasy can just feel not well worked within the universe when you watch it in live action, when you know it's CGI, when you know it like has to be fake. You're not as willing to just suspend your disbelief. How are the visual elements of the show holding up for you guys? Like, are you okay with the way that they've presented them? Would you wish they were different? Brian, where you been at?
So in terms of bending, right, which is the core, the main fantastical element, I think they've actually done a fairly decent job at it. Like it's for the most part looks pretty cool. I think it varies from style to style, though. I would say the biggest surprise for me was earthbending, seeing that come alive in live action, particularly in the very first scene of the very first episode. You have the earthbender who stole some plans from the Fire Nation, is running away in an alley, in a very dark alley. And I think this scene is one of the few scenes that's not carbon copied from the cartoon. And you see the guy earthbend, and it looks really impressive and dangerous. Like it looks like the earth as a weapon is quite ominous, and it'll kill somebody, right? That's immediately where my mind went, and I don't think I ever had that feeling watching the animated series, or not to this degree, where it's like, yeah, that is something very scary. And then of course you have firebending as well, rendered in live action. Suddenly Ozai is burning people to a crisp, and that also is incredibly menacing and ratchets it up the intensity a little bit. And then
I don't remember that from the cartoons. Was he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's no burned up corpse in the cartoon.
One of the benefits, this is one of the only benefits or biggest benefits of them going live action is that you can get away with a tasteful immolation of a character in a way that, firebending
like a crisp barbecue.
Yeah, but firebending, fire is just so naturally destructive that it was always hard to show on screen how dangerous firebending can be. All of their really most violent acts are done off screen, right? Like they genocided the air nomads, but that's an off screen thing. Here we got to see a visual representation.
Right.
We know that the Fire Nation has the highest body count because everybody hates them because they've been at war for 100 years. So we know that they're deadly. But it was just hard to have Azula burn somebody alive in Airbender. So that I'll actually give them props for.
In a kids show.
Yeah, they've done a good job of like not of really being able to kind of play up. Like, hey, firebending is lethal when you want it to be, and they will absolutely. The firebending kills have been dope. I gotta give them props for props.
Yeah. It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Firebending is
Like
scary.
it's real fire. We know that fire hurts, and fire's gonna maim and kill people. So I think those are pluses. On the flip side, though, waterbending, Katara's waterbending, like it looks. I think visually, visual effects wise, it looks good. Splashing people in the face, though, ow! Like, as a sharp contrast to getting smacked with a fireball, it maybe doesn't resonate quite as much, unfortunately. So it's a good and bad adaptation of the bending, but for the most part, all of it fits into a singular world. And then you have the Avatar state on top of that, which I think they actually did do a really solid job at the Avatar state, making that look destructive, omnipotent, and if not taken full reign of, could be catastrophic.
I like that word, catastrophic. I didn't actually realize, because I had forgotten, that Avatar Kyoshi was an earthbender, which they didn't take advantage of. He didn't do any.
Forget these things.
I don't know, but he didn't do it. Well, my point was not so much that, was that he didn't. Aang as Kyoshi didn't do any earthbending in that fight. So I was like, oh, he kind of did some airbending almost, like. But anyways, I don't know. For me, the visuals are like hit and miss. I mean, I think the one that's impossible is the airbending. Like, how do you visually show the air moving? They've had to do a lot of things, like they're showing like leaves, fly over, or like dust happen, or you see like a shockwave, but they do it by just like blurring the whole screen all at once. They're not like, I mean, like, what an impossible task for the visual artist to visually show what airbending is, because it's literally just moving invisible molecules faster.
Right. In an illustration, it's lines, like lines whipping across a page.
Or you see like the dust. They're always in a dusty area in the cartoon, right? And so it can always like shoot the dust somewhere. But they don't have that advantage all the time, especially if you're indoors or something like that. Love that they pulled out the air ball, though. What a cool thing for them to show.
That was definitely for the fans.
Yeah, I loved it. I was like, oh, they brought out the air ball. So all of that was cool. I thought that the earthbending has been the most believable one and the most cool. I guess I don't know why I missed the thing you were talking about in the alleyway. Maybe I was watching something else at the time or working. But
you had your other screen up.
I've been busy this week.
You were watching through your eyelids.
The earthbending that we see once we get to Omashu, and we see that the earthbenders use their earthbending to open up the gates in the way that they did in the cartoon, that was like super cool. I was just like, oh, that feels like, oh damn, like there's power and weight behind what the earthbenders are doing in a way that, like you said, Katara is also not an expert bender yet, right? But in the way that we haven't actually seen her be powerful yet. So that was cool. I love to see that. But where's Toph? I need me some Toph to show up. I hope she gets a run in the show somewhere.
Well, it's pretty clear that they're following the exact story schematic of the animated series, so I think Toph won't get introduced until season 2.
Oh, boo on that.
Is that right, Siobhan?
I don't know how far they're getting into this first, like where they plan. I don't know where they plan on ending this season, because Toph wasn't there in the northern water tribe when they had all the moon stuff, right?
I don't think so.
That was before they met Toph, right?
I'm pretty sure she arrives in the second season.
Yeah, because they've already established that Admiral Zhao's here. He's a jerk. He's going to do the whole moon thing. I know we get Yue. Yeah, I think all of that is... Yeah, Aang is still learning waterbending. So yeah, I think Toph is going to be season 2 because she's not in Omashu. And I think that's the only Earth settlement they go to up until this point in the story.
Toph is probably my favorite character from the original cartoon. What'd you say?
She's everybody's
favorite. Oh, okay. So not a hot take. All right. So what have been your favorite parts of the show? We got to do a little positive spin here. I know that you guys are feeling a little bit like up and down on the show. Sam, what's been your favorite part of the show?
Shit. I actually kind of like a lot of the.
Take your time.
No. I actually like. Well, first of all, I'm gonna rehash what Brian said. How they've presented the elements on screen, I'm actually like more impressed than not impressed. Earthbending looks legit. Like even the rocks look sharper and more lethal than before. I think Kyoshi was
lethal's the right word.
Yeah, I think Kyoshi actually was earthbending when she did that scene. I think they had rocks in her little elemental tornado thing that she was making. So
maybe a few pebbles.
Yeah, some rock. But like, but the way I see it is like a pebble going at high speed is basically a bullet. That's my head. I think again that's harder to portray on screen. I mean, in animation form actually, but I think live action. If someone threw a pebble at you at a high speed, that would draw blood. So if someone throws a storm of them at you, like that's like getting shot with like a shotgun, like pellets and fletches.
Episode 4.
I'm excited to see more.
I'm just spoiling it for you.
Yeah, that's fine. So the airbending I've liked, earthbending I've liked, firebending I've liked. Waterbending, not impressed, but I'm going to give them a pass because our only waterbender has been Katara, who is established to be low level. So I'm going to wait until maybe we see Paku whenever they go to the northern water tribe and see, like, okay, what does a master waterbender look like? Do they make the water? Because water is the same deal, right? Like a high pressure hose can legit cut your fingers off. So do they give that impression? Do they make the blades look icy? There's stuff they can do to make the waterbending look lethal. I have high hopes because they've made the other elements look well, especially the airbending, which I had big questions about. But when the airbenders were defending themselves in that opening battle, they made the airbenders like, oh, these people are dangerous when they want to be. It's a good thing that they're so chill by nature. So I want to rehash that. I like the way that they've made the elements look so far.
Right.
But also, I'm digging the casting. Honestly, a lot of the casting, they've made some. I think some of the dialogue itself can feel a little cheesy, a little hammy. And again, I think it's because
that's how the cartoon was.
Yeah, but I think this is another one of those, a real person saying the lines feels a little bit cheesier than an animated character. The same way like comic book
where it's
lines,
more charming in animated form, right?
Yeah, I think some of that charm gets lost because like a person trying to say some of these dramatic lines can't do the animated facial expressions and and even quasi anime stuff that Avatar did when they were, with the exaggerated faces when someone says something silly or whatever. But the casting's good. Like Firelord Orzai, I'm a fan. Is that Daniel Day Kim?
From Lost.
Yeah.
And the White House.
Yeah. Iroh's casting, I'm struggling
the
with
actual White
things.
House.
Yeah.
Is it Paul Sun Lee?
Oh yeah, he's from what was that Canadian show?
Kim's Convenience.
Yeah, that Simu Liu was on.
Yeah, he was yeah, and he was in Mando as that that commander, that X-wing fighter cop who was chill as shit.
Yep.
Which, by the way, you know he's younger than Daniel Day Kim by like 4 years.
No way.
The dude who plays Iroh is younger than the guy who plays.
There's no way.
I swear
That's
to God.
crazy.
But the casting is good. The actor who plays Zuko, I like him a lot actually. Like his angry
from Pen 15
moment. I'm not sure what else he was from, but I like the anger, the frustration. I'm a big fan. The actor who plays Admiral Zhao, like I've seen him in a lot of other stuff too. I know he was in Saw. He was in some of the old X-Men movies. Like the casting is actually pretty
Rush
good.
Hour.
And they have some, Rush Hour as well. They have some like
Lost
legit.
Also.
They have some legit. Him using Lost.
yeah.
Well, they have the casting is pretty good. Like some of the people they have are legit. I think the actor for Sokka even threw me off a little bit at first, but I've grown to like him more and more. The actor who plays Suki, and then even our main cast, right? Like Katara, I think they haven't given her enough from where I'm at to really get a feel for how I feel about the actor. I like Aang. I like that they're leaning into he just wants to be a normal kid type. I think they didn't really lean into that as hard in the first series, but I think the casting was surprisingly well done. I think the adult characters are played by some actual heavy hitter actors who really do this. And the younger characters are some fresh new blood who I think do a solid job of encapsulating the characters. And again, I'll have to wait longer to see how I feel about the younger cast members, but I think the adults they have are great in their roles. I'm loving Iroh. I'm just digging. Yeah, the casting was good. They could have.
Oh yeah, shout out to Suki's mom, Tamlin Tamita of Karate Kid 2 fame.
Oh
yeah, Joy Luck Club. It's nice seeing her in a kimono again. And I thought she was going to pull out that drum from Karate Kid 2. It was just like to rally all the troops. Like, this is your moment. Okay, you guys haven't watched Karate Kid.
Definitely have not.
I have not.
Missing out.
First Karate Kid I've seen a couple of times. I've definitely been into Iroh, so shout out to that actor. Always does a great job, and I think he embodies, I think, what I remember about Iroh really well. You can tell he's like very smart, he's political, he understands like the situation right away. Like in any situation where there's a little bit of like, oh, there's some deception going on here, he can sniff it out like really quickly and understands like the next move is this, right? If we want to keep going towards our goal, I want to support my nephew, then this is the way we're going to go. And the nephew might not like the decision or the way that I'm pushing him, but like I can see where this is going, and like I want to make sure that the situation is actually going to play out later in the way that we want it to. And so he kind of builds on it like over, immediately in the situation, and makes the right call in a way that isn't just reactionary, but like very planned and very intentional. And I felt like that was something that the original Iroh did, and also the like appreciation for like the small moments are also something that like we love about the original Uncle Iroh. And clearly, they're doing that with this one. He's always finding a little snack or a little drink or something just to enjoy in the place where he's at, which is really funny and good. I agree with Sav that the casting of the three kids, Aang, Katara, Sokka, has been like super spot on in that like that's Aang, that's Sokka, and Katara's a little bit, I think, maybe a step down from there, but Sokka as being the person that I was probably most like not caring about in the animated series. I'm really liking that he's pulling off all of the Sokka things, the cartoony things, so well. Like he has like crazy facial expressions, he like does all the like smooth but not smooth things that he does. His just like jaw dropping, like very obvious like ogling of Suki, just like all the things that he did in the show are here in this show. And I'm like, I mean, not that I love Sokka and how he was in the first place, but like you're nailing the Sokka like exactly how Sokka should be if he was like you, and his look is on point. So I feel like they've done that awesome. And then my favorite part has actually been the Kyoshi warrior, or the Kyoshi like scenes, and mainly just because of the costuming they did for the Kyoshi warriors and for Suki. Just like, how do you have like this ornate gold headdress with like this armor on, and the ridiculous makeup? It's clearly a cartoon makeup, and then they translated that to a real person or real people, and it came out looking like legitimately badass, and like, oh damn, like this is part of your like armor as well. I don't know, I feel like it's difficult to make
definition of badass.
Yeah, I mean, to make it,
I don't know if I agree with that.
No,
that statement.
I was like really amazed that you could take something that was like clear, like from the cartoon, and translate it so directly to a human, like a live action human, and have it look believable that like this is the makeup that you have on, and it was like pinstripe perfect. And I don't know, just I was really excited about, not excited, I just was really like respectful of like how much like care they put into that, to those moments and those costumes for Suki. So I don't know, I was into all of that stuff. Sav, we can't hear you. You are muted.
See, those are the moments where I'm torn, because like it looks accurate and well done, but I think sometimes things look too good in real life, and it looks so good that it looks fake.
Nah,
it's like, unbelievable, right?
Yeah,
it's
like it's like, oh, there's no
sharp
smudges.
Primary colors.
Yes, but it had a gradient. Like, no bro, you guys are wrong.
Aesthetically great, but then I'm like, okay,
so
y'all
good.
are fighting. There's no dust. There's no smudges. There's no your makeup getting messed up in battle. Like, again, that is okay in a cartoon, but your brain picks that out way more critically, I think, when it's live action.
I think your brain,
especially
even your hair not getting disheveled in battle.
We've like totally switched places. This is always the argument I feel like that I would be making if I were me, and I'm totally in the like, I don't give a shit, like suspend my disbelief, like just give me these like fun fights and like cool things, and just like steal everything you can from the show. I'm like,
smooth brainer over here.
yeah, I think that's
He's just
really
riding the
funny.
slopes.
I mean,
The
like,
bunny slopes.
Brian, isn't this something? I feel like this would be something I would nitpick, like all these things that Sav are saying normally.
Absolutely.
And I'm totally like,
You're on the
don't
other
care.
side now.
Yeah, that's really funny. Sav, you've turned me into a like just a let me consume it and enjoy it kind of person, and now you're taking my role. So we've just completely body switched
Don't
ourselves.
you ever say that. Don't you?
So can
ever
I
say
continue on the wet blanket? Like
all right. Go ahead.
the acting, I think you guys are right that the actors they chose correctly portray each of the characters that they're meant to a fault.
Oh no.
It's like why is the point of their acting to essentially be a facsimile of a cartoon? And that to me is the worst way to act. Like when you see somebody just like, doing their best impersonation of a caricature, right? Because it's literally a caricature because it's a cartoon.
They're competing with voice actors who do this for a living of only acting with their voice, not acting with
Correct.
their face.
Right. And then relying on animators to do the visual acting.
Of like
when you try to do that, it really takes my suspense of disbelief away. Right? Because now you have people who look like they are acting rather than being and existing in a live action world, right? So like Iroh, yeah, he's exactly kind of like the cartoon version of Iroh, but not a believable human being because he's got this really ridiculous fake looking beard and is like
He's
trying
got a
to
top
act with
knot.
his eyes and trying to be silly. And it's like something made for the stage. You know what I mean? It's like something made for the circus or the stage where you have people who are very far away. So you're just being extra, right? So that it can be seen from very far away. And I don't think this medium calls for that. I think film and TV is very much more about nuance and subtlety and looks like facial expressions that are very much more naturalistic. And I wish this show had more of that. And yeah, so I like Sokka, like Sokka is very much like Sokka. And I did laugh. I think he actually lands some of his punchlines pretty well. But at the same time, he feels like a cartoon. Like, should he? Do we want these real life actors feeling like cartoons? And I want to say the answer is no. However, I will say though that on the flip side, one of the things that I'm liking about the show though is where they do deviate from the animated series, right? And so like that, I mentioned that earthbending scene that started out the first episode, or Ozai actually burning somebody.
Yeah.
Another key thing I think is the Zuko Iroh backstory, which we get in episode 4. Which does more of what I'm talking about. They do more of this human interaction between Zuko and Iroh, and they establish a relationship and a backstory for their relationship that I don't think that they did in the animated series. And it, in talking about Iroh's son who died in the war, and then Zuko's response to that for Iroh, and how Zuko is there for his uncle. And I think to me that is, that changes the story, that elevates it. It brings it to a new and interesting place. And the actors in those moments do it really well. And so I'm hoping there's more of that to come in the latter half of the season. And, if they continue this nostalgia tour of Avatar in subsequent seasons.
Mm-hmm.
As a callback to one of our recent shows on Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I was a little bit shaky on the first half of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and I thought the second half of Mr. and Mrs. Smith really
you were hung up on this, bro.
Took it up a level. So you're right. I mean, maybe the second half of this show will also, step it up a notch. Maybe they'll find their footing a little bit more.
It's possible,
and find their voice. So that's definitely a thing that could happen. Sav, did you have any notes for the creators of the show.
Yeah, so check what I mean. Just to reinforce one of the points we were talking about, the characters being cartoons. To Brian's point, look at what I linked in the chat. It's a link of just a picture of Iroh, but it's one of him smiling, and it was a moment where he was very excited about something. Right? Check the link.
On the state of the Knicks?
If you click the link, you'll notice. What is that? What was that?
We're a professional show here, guys.
Whatever.
What
if
are we
you click
doing?
the link, you'll see he has this big, goofy, cartoon facial expression that perfectly encapsulates a lot of how Iroh acts, that big, big kid energy he has. There's literally no way to translate that into this show. By no fault of the creators or nothing. It's just a medium incompatibility issue. And I think there's just going to be dozens and dozens of moments like that picture I shared with y'all that you just aren't going to be able to translate on screen. And I just wonder how much of that, which is one of the biggest strengths and charms of the show, you just, in the cartoon, you just don't get in this. And so I think they lose that, but their potential way to knock it out the park, to Brian's point, is leaning into these flashbacks and character scenes that we didn't get before. But if we don't get a lot of that, I feel like we're going to lose more than what we've gained in what we get out of this show. And again, I'm curious to see, all right, how y'all going to handle that.
Mathematically, this is all gain, Sav. I don't know how you can lose something.
Apologies for that noise interruption. I opened up the link you sent, and then suddenly all my Pornhub tabs went off, and I had to shut them down.
It's cool. That's for the post show.
You jerk off to basketball clips?
You don't?
This is
Come
what
on.
your Pornhub version
casual?
looks like?
You casual?
Yeah, he's clearly never watched a Nuggets game.
That was good. All right.
Yeah, but but when it's all said and done, like, the show is pretty solid. But I think Brian actually raised a good thing that I'm going to be having my eyes out of. How do you let the actors act? And if they don't really get to act, again, how much is that taking away from the potential of the show? Because I like when actors get to actually add their own spin and interpretation on the character. Because sometimes some of our most memorable performances of stuff were because people said, "Oh, I want to add my own spin." Like, there's been a bazillion iterations of the Joker because each actor is like, "Okay, I want to try my own version." Some are better than others, but I respect that they let the actors breathe and kind of do their thing. I hope this doesn't feel like great talent being put into into a box that doesn't let them actually, because on that point, I was really hyping up the casting, right? Just a second ago, hyping up the casting. But if we're getting, Daniel Day-Kim? But if he's going to get to be Ozai, and your boy Paul is going to get to be Iroh, is it, to your point, is it just them doing their best Iroh cartoon impersonation, or will we let them flex their decades of acting experience to add a new sense of flavor to characters that otherwise are beloved, but we're getting more of the same? Like, we've seen what the classic Iroh looks like for the last 20 years. Give me something a little bit different. It doesn't have to be drastic. You don't have to reinvent the character, but this is your chance to, I don't know, do something new. But that goes back to the original question of, who is this for? Is it to explore new territory and uncharted concepts, or is it to be a nostalgia tour and give the people what they liked 20 years ago? I don't think one is bad or good, but like that intention is part of what helps me judge the show, because I want to know what the, we've talked about like rubrics at rating shows. What are y'all trying to do so I can know how to properly judge?
I think they're more on the, like, let's create more of a nostalgia
bait.
show. Yeah. I don't think it's bait. I think it's the show.
All nostalgia is bait.
Jesus, this is cynical as hell.
In a commercial medium, yeah.
I mean, some bait is more authentic than others, but the fact that the showrunners left leans me into this feeling like it's more bait than let's just do something fresh and new, or retell this story.
I don't know. Yeah, it's not fresh. I don't think it is fresh and new, but the visuals are fun. The stories are fun. Like, getting to see Omashu is cool. Like, getting to see them on the sleds, as they're going up and down.
Why should I watch this over the cartoon? Why should I not just go on Netflix, boot up the other Avatar, and sit and watch that all weekend?
I mean, I think it's just a
curiosity, basically.
I mean, that's the question for all the viewers.
How are they going to portray this?
All the listeners, that's my question to y'all. Like, I mean, that's for all. I mean, I'm going to pose that question to the listeners, right? Like, hey, hit us up on the socials, whatever. But like, what is it that you're wanting out of this show? and why should we watch this over the cartoon or watch both? Like, I think that's a real question about what this show is even meant to be. And, you know, I think we all need to, I'm just curious, I guess, what the other fans of the show think about it. Like, I got friends who all want to watch this. Tyler's watched it, Kendall's watched it. I know people like Daphne, Katie. I got a bazillion friends who will absolutely watch this. What's the
Shout
draw?
out to the friends.
Shout out to the
Listeners
various
of the
friends
show.
and associates
Super
of the show.
friends.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not a
I
critique.
don't know.
It's a real
I
question.
hear you. And I think maybe this is like a marketing issue, right? Like in The Last of Us, we got a lot of access to the writers of both the video game and the show because they were working together. And we're not hearing from them as much in this one, or I haven't seen anything come across my feed. And so maybe this is a marketing thing, right? Like they could have done a better job about explaining like what they hope for the show and how they wanted it to be judged. And you would have gone in with different expectations depending on which it was. I think it sounds to me like both of you went in with the expectation of, hey, we're hoping that this explores new territory and like, you know, figures out a way to make this more grounded and more, not more realistic, but more grounded and feel lived in and everything. And I'm like, this world is so fantastical that I don't necessarily need all of that stuff all of the time. I mean, I don't want it to feel like fake, but I think you still have a venue or a way to show the connections between people, because like kind of at its heart, right, that's what Avatar was. It was these connections between these characters and stuff, and it feels like the three main characters do have a lot of chemistry and relationship building that they're doing, and like kind of the like, you know, the dance that they're doing. And I don't know, I mean, I feel like that stuff is working well enough that I'm okay with some of the other stuff being like carbon copies. But you know, and Iroh and his care for Zuko is coming through, right? Like there's just stuff that they're doing that, yeah, it's a copy from the show, but they're doing it well enough that I'm like, hey, this is cool enough. I'm good with that, and let's just see some more air bison, you know, scenes.
Yeah, so I think truly one of the strengths of this show is just the very fact that it's based on some of the best storytelling there ever was. You know,
Mhm.
in the animation, right? Like, yeah, for me, for Savan, maybe for Wes, I don't know. It's like hands down, you know, one of those foundational series that we compare all other series to in a way,
Mhm.
because it's that good.
It's probably
And
not for
so,
me at that top tier, but also, I mean, I watched it much later.
I mean, so did I. I was,
Yeah. We were 30s.
I was adult. I watched it with my now wife. But anyway,
My now wife.
you know, I think that because they are adapting it so faithfully, the storytelling elements do come through in this live action adaptation, and those storytelling elements are so good on their own, right? Like Aang struggling with the responsibility of having this weight on his shoulders while wanting to be a child, and other people dealing with grief and suffering as a result of a war, and trying to understand how they manifest their emotions. Like all of that sort of growing up stuff is coming across in this, and they're having fun doing it, right? Which is another big appeal of the animated series. So by adapting it so faithfully, like that stuff comes across. It comes across. And as much as I have issues with this show, I still enjoy nostalgia. Like nostalgia's a powerful drug. What can I say? But I do agree with Savan that after watching an episode, I'm kind of like, I want to toggle down to, you might like this suggestions, and the you might like this suggestions are the animated series. It's like, maybe I actually just want to watch an episode of that.
Maybe.
So,
all right. Well, so that then takes into the next question. You're halfway through the series. Are you going to finish it? Now, like, we're probably not going to come back and talk about this, so there's no, like, homework for you to do anymore. Is it going to make it to your queue now that you don't have to watch it, quote unquote?
I mean, I'm probably going to finish it.
Right. Good
Yeah.
enough to finish, at least.
I want to finish it. I want to, I have a lot of questions about this show, and there's a certain level of investment I already have just because of the IP. So I want to give it a finish, and we'll see where we go from here.
All right. It sounds like Netflix was successful then.
I did not finish Cowboy Bebop.
Don't hype up Netflix too hard. See, I guess they were successful. Like, no,
they were successful in trapping you into watching it. This is from
I'm
your
not-
point of
Signing
view.
up for a subscription? Did you do it?
Oh, hell no. What? You thought I was giving my money?
Good for
Yeah,
you. Good
Sam,
for you. Hold
Sam
that
hit us
line.
up and was like, "Ooh, I might have to subscribe now. My password not working."
Yeah, hold on. Let's not frame this as they have succeeded and they have trapped me. Avatar was already good and they made a show and I decided to watch it. I don't want to give them too much credit. Let me decide if the show is good. I might watch it and then leave it a 1-star review. Hey, I do not recommend. Thumbs down.
Fair enough. All right. Well, you'll tell us when you finish what it ended up being for you.
I got you.
Yeah, and I wonder where they're gonna finish it too. Right? I feel like that's also going to impact whether we enjoy the series, is whether we get enough movement within the story to really like feel like, okay, we're bought in, or whether they're like, yeah, we made it, to the moon city and then we're like done. Like, okay,
they're probably
like
gonna do
happened.
the moon war stuff. Seems like to me a good. I mean, like I said, we know we get UA. The conclusion of that is the moon stuff, water bending, time to learn earth bending. They've already set up Zhao to clearly be the main, because he was the first villain of the first season. He was like that first villain. Like, it's pretty clear how. I mean, at least from what I've seen, these 2.5 episodes, I could be wrong, but it seems pretty clear what they're setting up. I imagine once they do the northern water temple invasion moon stuff, that'll be where the season ends, and then we'll get Toph season 2, like Brian said before.
So as a teacher, you often get hit with these icebreakers, like, what superpower would you choose, or what is the da-da-da-da? But like, in the context of Avatar, what bending would you do? Which element would be your pick if you could pick one? Or would you be a non-bender and just survive on your
Would you protest
wits?
against the benders?
Ooh, maybe. Yeah.
Like
in Korra?
But I would like to be a grifter who protests against the benders while simultaneously being a bender.
What?
Troll. That's not a grifter. That's a troll.
No, I believe in rights of people who don't bend. I believe in people, non-benders' rights. I also still want to control elements. Like, well, I gotta pick. Why can't I be like, hey, y'all deserve equality, but I also deserve my powers? Like, I don't think that's so crazy hill to die on.
Do you want to be an avatar? Is that what you're saying? You want all 4 powers?
No, that's too much responsibility.
Okay.
And I'll be cursing people out. I'll be a bad avatar. Avatar Savant, leave me alone. It is my day off. Oh my god, you need to balance the world. I need balance in my work schedule. All right. I'd be I'd probably
work and life, the two elements out of whack.
I'd probably be an airbender. I've always traditionally answered Earth because Earth is everywhere and it's very practical, but this show kind of sold me on how air is actually like, it's basically low-level telekinesis.
And I know based on your coughing right now, that reminds me, like, you got the iron lung, so we know you're already airbending.
Oh yeah, boy! Oh my god! Imagine just using a super airbend inhale, just. Oh boy, I'll be lit in a mug.
Saiyan mode, super
right?
Saiyan mode.
No, but I think airbending would be the most fun. I like how Aang was moving around. You can use it to move faster, mobility, attack, move stuff around. Like, seems very practical. No matter what happens, there's air. There's always air. If you don't have air, you got bigger problems going on. Bigger than bending.
You could kill somebody by removing the air around them. That would be.
Which they have done.
Yeah, they did that.
Oh, so did I steal that from the show? Okay, my bad.
Super deadly.
I forgot.
Yeah, that was the first time Avatar killed somebody on screen, no ambiguity.
Okay. Yikes!
Dude literally
terrible way to die.
He literally pulled the air out of her lungs while giving a speech to her.
Damn.
You remember that, the Red Lotus from Korra?
No. I mean, I must, because I pulled that out of somewhere, so I must remember that. See, these things, they live in my brain, I'm telling you, but I just don't remember them. I'm picking... See, I really wanted to pick Earth, but now Savan made it uncool. He was like, that's just such a pedestrian answer. But
I did not say that. Earth is awesome.
But
Air
like,
is just really practical. Don't
it is
don't
practical.
project that
Like
onto me.
my practicality was thinking like what Iroh said of like, they built these like walls and they're seamless and stuff, and I was like, that would be cool. Like you could build any structure you want anytime you need it. Like I could build a basketball court just right here and then put it back to the way it was or whatever, and then you'd have a defense mechanism. You could have an offense mechanism. You wouldn't necessarily have to like fire is so destructive that like it's not always super useful. Like I can't use it on in like school, or I can't use it in my job or whatever. And
You could use it at
You
school.
you could use it. You could use it in a lot of contexts.
that seems
but
like a war
you're
crime.
gonna be in some hot water.
I'm not trying to war crime things here, but like, even if I was playing with Kaya and Eliza, like you could do cool things with like moving platforms for them, and they could play in their own little Mario game. And I don't know. It just seems like earthbending would just be so much fun, and there's so much power that's involved in it that feels like the right answer. But I would also love to fly, and
Work
airbenders
for a
can kind of
landscaping
fly.
company.
I could open a landscape, but like airbending is flying, guys. Like I
Well,
don't know
they-
how do
Well, they
you.
only can fly if they let go of their earthly tether. So, and you have a family, so you should be good on that. Unless you're like on some real psycho shit.
Oh, seriously, I can't fly.
Yeah.
I could jump high,
You
but
could-
not fly.
You can
If you
fly.
recall
You
Korra,
can fall with
like,
style.
you need to go to a dark place to fly.
Yeah.
Okay.
That homeboy learned how to fly once his love of his life was killed in front of him in a war, and it's like, I guess now I don't care anymore.
That's a stretch, a metaphorical stretch, I'd say. All right, Brian, what are you going with?
So I love how there's like side bender things going on, right? So like
A side
earthbenders can do lava bending and metal bending, and then water. There's like a version of water bending where it's
Ugh.
blood bending. Is there
Gen
a version? Is there a version of I'm thinking earth bending that is actually food bending? Can I
What do you mean?
like turn some beans and
No.
like just like alter the molecule so that it becomes like a gourmet pizza? Could I do that? I think that would be
Ooh.
cool. I think that would
No,
be
you can't do
crazy
that.
useful. I would just turn some dirt into a delicious meal and I'd be good.
You think you
And
Adam
I would
Eve? You're
save
not a
a way ton of
molecule
time
bender.
and a lot of money.
That's a reality bending, dog.
Yeah.
That's alchemy.
Could I do that too?
Your Adam Eve powers, I guess, is what you want. But
I want
that would be kind of cool.
self
just to, like,
delusion bending.
delicious food wherever you go, whenever you need it. Like that would be pretty dope.
That would be awesome, right?
Yeah, that would be kind of good.
Maybe that's more of an Adam Eve ability.
It is.
We're gonna
This is the wrong universe I'm
Yes,
in.
you went off the rails with this. Like, bro, nobody's bending food.
That's what we rely on him for, just to really think outside the box.
You still got to buy cabbage from the cabbage cart.
That's why he's the creative, person in our group, and me and Zav work in very like concrete roles.
The artist.
Yeah, he's the artist of
yeah,
the group.
you guys are the guys that shit on everybody else's dreams. Like the teacher that tells the student, like, maybe you should shoot lower, and then the director over here that tells his reports, like, maybe you're fired.
Maybe you're not good at this. You're not cut out to do email. I'm sorry.
Yeah. We're gonna have to drop you. Thanks.
You can't find
Thanks,
anybody
guys.
else who wants to do that shitty job, but you were just not. We just know it's better to not have you.
Y'all said it,
All right,
not me.
friends. That'll wrap us up. Live action Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix. Tell us what you thought on Instagram. You can hit us up at confidently_pod. We'll have some posts up once this show releases. Friends. Next show, we're going to talk about Christopher Nolan. So if you are interested in reviving the memories of Christopher Nolan, you only have to go watch, one of his original films or his earlier films like Memento.
Or go watch all 12 of his films.
You probably know Batman Begins and The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Returns, so you probably don't need to go watch those. You might remember the Inception. So you really just have to catch up on like the smaller ones like Prestige. Dunkirk was huge. You might remember that one. And then recently we saw Oppenheimer, and that was seen by some people. So
Not Savan.
not Savan.
Sorry,
It was not seen by as many people as the people who saw Barbie. There are way more people who saw Barbie. But that's what we're going to talk about next time. So if you're interested in getting ahead of the game and really kind of relating to Christopher Nolan, you got some work cut out. Watch some movies. See you later, friends. Bye.
Fire yo, Hotman.
Peace.